What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Dad's All In Live show. I'm super happy you're here. I hope your week's been going great. Hope your family's doing well. I'm just happy you're here, my friend. We are going to talk about some heavy stuff to start with, and then I promise we're going to move to some really cool resources that I'm going to get to you as a parent that I think you're really going to enjoy. So hang with me. But if you feel like life is a little heavy right now because of things that are happening in your family, things that are happening in community, things that are happening in society in general, you're not alone. I want you to know you are not alone. There is a ton of stuff going on out there in the world. I honestly think when we get to the end of this decade, they should give medals to all the parents who survived it. Because think about how we came in 2020, right? We don't need to relive that. And think about the stuff that's going on now. And I imagine difficulties are going to continue to go on as we move forward. You know, you wake up one day and, we're going to bomb Venezuela. You wake up the next day and we'd like to get Greenland. The next day, hey, we still like to have Canada. The following day, we got issues with ICE raids. The list goes on. And what I'm getting at is maybe if you're seeing all of this, the stress beyond just what you normally have to go through as a parent, now you see it in society and you add that in, and it's just not a great situation. So we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about some things that hopefully are going to help you. I'm going to give you some ideas, especially what my wife and I do to try to sift through all of some of this chaos. So we're going to talk about the chaos, and then I'm going to give you some resources, some free resources. Coming up this week, actually just today, I dropped a YouTube video. You can check it out on brand new social media parental controls on YouTube Shorts. Pretty awesome stuff. I'm going to give you a little bit of that information today, but I'm also going to share with you what's coming down the pike in my next video. In the following video, hopefully getting to this week, I'm going to give you tons, we'll just say tons of free resources. Now, this was prompted because last week we talked about stress, but we talked about it specifically for finances and the things that as families we're struggling with financially. I brought up the example of an oil change, right? And also coffee, which the cost of those two items are just, two of many that seem to go through the roof. So it got me thinking this week. I actually got an email from somebody, and thank you, Luke. Luke seems to email me a lot. Dad's All In Podcast, by the way. If you have questions you want to get on the show, feel free to email that. And if you have any comments and questions while you're here in the live, feel free to throw that in too. See if we get to some of those later. But Luke's email was, do you have any suggestions about things that you can do? Yes, the financial issue is legit, but any things that will help? Well, I'm not necessarily like a financial wizard. My wife and I work on a lot of things together, budget-wise. But what I thought about, what I can do, is use my background in resources and work on the next few weeks getting you some free stuff. Because I think as parents, we deserve it. You pay enough for all kinds of stuff. Let's start with some free stuff. So I'm gonna introduce you to an incredible site today that has so many resources, so many tools, and I stumbled on it and it just kind of blew my mind. So I can't wait to get on that. So let's start here. Where are you at when it comes to all the stress in society? As I said, we've got loads that we're dealing with. Every time you turn on the news, there's just so much to have to sift through. Are you are you at the place where you're like, the kids walk in and you're like, turn the news off? Or are you kind of thinking they got to be exposed to it anyway? So it is what it is. There's so much going on in society, and as I kind of rattled off a bunch of different options that you see almost, it feels like so often, just every day you wake up, there's something different going on. It's tough to know what to share with your kids. And I've kind of sifted through this before. I've talked about this on my podcast a few months ago. I'm going to share a couple of those points right now, but I want you to know this. And, if you've been a long-time listener, you've heard me say this to probably ad nauseum, but I can't say it enough. Every kid is their own unique individual. So, yes, we can put like, hey, when they're 8 years old, then they can do this. Or when they're 12 years old, it's time to introduce them to some of the more intense news that's out there in the world. But really, it's when your kid can handle it. It's not always as easy as like, here's an age limit. When they hit this age, then this happens. For example, when you're 16, you can drive. Not every 16-year-old is ready to drive. You know, my son was not excessively comfortable with just jumping right behind the wheel and rolling. I worked with him for quite a few months. Now, in where we're at, there's like a 6 month period where you work through a permit, and a lot of these states have it. But when the day came when he could just go out and drive on his own, he was like, I'm not ready yet. And you know what? That's okay. So every kid has their own development that they're working through. And I use that as an example to share how you give your kids information. So here's a couple things to think about. Number one is your child, like, just know their brain and what they can take. And when I say know their brain, I also mean like know emotionally how they will handle things. If your kid struggles with anxiety, it's probably not going to be the best thing for them to watch a lot of the news right now. And that's all right. And that doesn't matter if they're 9 years old or 19 years old. If your kid could take it okay, it's possible that they could sit down and watch the news with you at 12 or 13. But not every child, not every teenager is ready for all of that. You might not be ready for it. Like a lot of adults, well, a good friend of mine, Phil Januszewski, he travels the country and does just some amazing work trying to help people figure out a good system for them to balance everything in their lives and just be the best humans they can be in general. He said on a podcast a few months ago that, it's not always about just being happy every single day, but it's building systems that will help you. And the same thing can go, with you. He actually says, I don't watch the news. Like, I can't handle it. My job is to get out there and pump people up, make them feel good about life, and the news brings me down. If that's you, it's understandable. Now, you probably do want to keep at least a little bit of the knowledge, a little bit of like the corner of your eye on the news, at least a little bit, because it could affect you at some point, whether it be healthcare decisions or education decisions or anything else, financial or things in the world in general. So it's probably a good idea to keep an eye on it, but you don't necessarily have to, ingest massive amounts of it, right? But that's not as much what I want to talk about today, other than make sure that you know your impact on this whole situation is when you're working with your kids. In other words, if it's just bugging you out ad nauseum to watch the news and it brings down your mental well-being, which is understandable, keep tabs on it, right? Don't do too much of it then. The other thing I would say is find things that take your mind off of it. For me, I do a variety of things and, activities with the kids and so forth, all the things we do as parents. But I also, obviously, content creation is a big thing of mine. Podcasting. I've now introduced live shows. If you're brand new, welcome, by the way. I'm glad you're here. I am failing in public this year. And you may be saying, what on earth does that mean? Well, my goal in 2026, even though I've podcasted a long time, I have not done live shows. And so now I thought, what could I do? 2026, it's time to pull the cord and get on the bandwagon with lives, and then I'll push that out in the podcast as well. And so I've started that. I'm stumbling through it. I did a soft opening a couple weeks ago that went horrifically bad. My mic wasn't hooked up right, and I had an issue with my audio recorder and a variety of other things. I stumbled around. Last week, I probably got a little bit better. This week, I think my video is a little bit better, but I could be talking right now, and you can't even hear me, and I just don't even know. Because on my end, everything looks okay, but who knows what it looks like on the other side, right? So I say that because I'm trying to fail and fail forward. And that's what we're doing as parents. We're trying to get a little bit better. And if you get to the point where you feel like you've seen yourself slip a little bit, your mental well-being, because of stress in society, maybe it's time to find things to take your mind off it. You do not have to be fully invested in everything, because there's just like a fine line. When your mental well-being is not top notch, it can spiral, and we aren't our best for our kids, right? We're just not our best for our kids that way. So what can you do as a parent, to try to make sure that you're approaching the things in society, right? I'll tell you this. I say that it depends on your individual child, but there are some parameters of like age to think about. Like, for example, you know, school violence, community violence, things like that. Those are really hard topics to go through with your kid, and it just boosts their anxiety. So, how much of that do you give to them? It kind of depends on how old they are and how ready they are for it. But I will give you this advice as a former school teacher. Your kids, when they get to upper elementary, they're going to go to school, and they're going to talk at lunch. They're going to talk on recess about the things that are happening in society, whether it be violence in the public arena or whether it be things they've seen on the news. They're going to talk some. So that's why I say it's probably a good idea to give a little bit of information at least. Because some kids are going to have plenty of it. They're going to watch all kinds of stuff. They're going to hear their parents talk about all kinds of stuff, and then they could bring those conversations into school with your kids, or to activities, extracurricular activities. So it's just important to kind of give them, as they get a little bit older, late elementary, definitely in the middle school, at least a little bit of information. Let me tell you what my wife and I have always done. We use I'll call it a filtered version. When the kids walk in the room, we turn the news on pause, right? Especially if it's something we think's gonna it's something that maybe is inappropriate that's on the news, or something that we feel like is going to increase their anxiety. And then what we will do is we'll sift through that and give them a filtered version, not incorrect version, a filtered version, meaning like, here's what you need to know about it. You don't have to watch all of it. Here's what you need to know. And as they get older, obviously you pull those restraints back a little bit. My son can sit down now as an 18-year-old, and we can have meaningful conversations about things that are happening in the world. We just did it today. Went to drop his car off, and yeah, we on the way back we chatted about some things that were happening in the world. So it really depends on your kid and how you want to approach it. So an all-in a method really depends on how they're hot-wired. Do you want to do a middle method where you give them a filtered system? They see a little bit, but you kind of filter the rest. Or are they not old enough? Are they not ready enough? They just don't ingest what's happening in society in general. That choice is up to you, my friend. And that's not easy. It's not easy. But it all goes back to understand your kid, understand where they're at, understand what they can take in. We still want them to be kids. Despite the craziness, we still want kids to live their big, amazing lives. And sometimes it's hard if there's too much anxiety. So too much worry about things that are happening in the world. So what do you do? Things are tough. What do you do? What do you do with your kids if the stress is too much? Here's one that we did tonight. It's super simple, and I always go back to it, and it's not rocket science. It's just force some fun and have a laugh. My wife and I will sometimes say, hey, let's choose this movie. We could all use a good laugh. Let's choose this game. We could all use a good laugh. I'm not going to geek out and tell you all the scientific theory behind this, but there's something called the vagus nerve. Laughing really hard, resets your vagus nerve, and it makes you just feel better. It's a stress relief. We play categories, which I'm horrifically bad at, and the kids know it. And categories, I'm not going to go into all the directions. Basically, they give you a topic, and then you've a bunch of different things to write about, and then you got to list things by the start. If you roll an S, everything's got to start with an S. And I get some of them. Others I don't do great, and then I just kind of get silly after a while. After I try for a while, and so what I usually say is, I want to try my best, but really I just want to laugh. It always comes back to laughing, and it does for them too. And so even if it's a stressful time, whether it be things that are happening in your lives, finances, society, whatever it is, finding ways to have a good laugh is good for you. It's good for your kids. It's just okay to give yourself an opportunity to say, you know what? Despite all the stress, we're here. I got my crew. We're good. We're going to be all right. That's important. There's a couple other things for you as a parent. As I said, find some things to take your mind off it. You do not have to think about stress all the time. Give yourself permission to listen to a podcast, to watch a TV show, to work out. All those things are important. And working out is kind of my next one, right? Like when things are too heavy, it's easy to let that part slip, taking care of yourself. Or when you're just so busy, it's easy to let that part slip and we don't take care of it ourselves as much. And then when we're not feeling, if we're eating horrible and we're not working out, and I say work out, I don't mean you've got to go to the gym and work 5 hours crunching and bench pressing. I'm not sure that's needed. You just need to be healthy, right? So whatever's going to be healthy, it's good for your brain. It will help relieve stress. So take care of yourself too. And then you'll be able to work with your kids a little bit more efficiently. Maybe efficiently is not the right word. Maybe productively, with a little less mood to you, maybe, right? So when I say it's tough, I really mean, it's not easy. It's not easy as a parent. And so if you have any, by the way, if you're new here and you want to throw a comment in the chat, we're on Facebook, Facebook and LinkedIn, and we're also on YouTube. I've got Instagram on the backside. What's up to my Instagram people watching the backstage version of it? You could throw a comment in the chat. If it's a question, put a Q in front of it. We'll see if we get time to get to it. But I just want you to think about how you manage your stress during these crazy times. It is not easy, people. It's not easy. Now, if you'll pause with me for a second here, this is the portion of the program where I'm definitely going to stumble through some stuff because I want to transition to some pretty cool resources that I stumbled on. I say stumbled on. I told you in the last live show, I really like ChatGPT, just AI in general. The reason, it's just easy. It seems to be easier to find information faster, I think anyway. So I stumbled on something. This is just an incredible resource, and I can't believe what I'm about to share with you is free. So usually when things are free, it's because you get like a week free, 7-day free trial, maybe a month if you're lucky. And then the subscription kicks in, right? That's how it works. They want you to get in there and get a little taste of it, and then you got to pay after a while. This is like that, but the free portion is 3 months long, what I'm about to share with you, which when you think about, like, that's longer than a summer. It's amazing. And so this is all parent resources. So as I pull this up here, what you're looking at, this is coming through as I share the screen, this is Hand in Hand Parenting, which is a website. It's a nonprofit organization. They also have a pretty awesome YouTube channel. And I am going to put out a YouTube video all about this nonprofit and the stuff that they do and the resources they provide. So you can check that out. Make sure you subscribe so you get notified when that comes out. And I'm also going to dive a little bit deeper than we will here in the live show. But I wanted to give you a gift, and I thought, you know what, you're here live, so let me go ahead and just gift it to you now. So let me flick over here. When you go to Hand in Hand Parenting, you can just Google it, or you can go to handinhandparenting.org. And then you're going to get this. This is 3 free months of parenting support. And it shows you a bunch of the stuff. And then you start your free trial, right? So let me back that out for a second and just kind of give you an idea of the kind of work they do. Now, they don't do just work for parents. They also do work for educators and people who work with kids in the mental health field, all of it, right? They're all in on helping kids, which I appreciate. As I've said before, my 2 passions in life, one is my family, and beyond that is helping kids, period. My kids, your kids, kids in classrooms, kids in communities. Just want to help kids. So they have a ton of stuff that is available for 3 months. I went in and checked it out. what you'll do once you click on that free trial is it will kick you over to a survey, like a Google form. And then you go through and answer a bunch of questions. You don't even have to answer all of them because they're not mandatory. You can answer the ones you want. And they're just gathering information on who's using their stuff. And when you do that, you're going to get access to a ton of things that I'm going to share with you in just a second. But if you go on their parents page, this is what it looks like. And then they give a breakdown here of what you're looking at, right? Like they have this is all parenting support, right? And who doesn't need support? So it's a variety of resources like Zoom calls, mentoring programs. When I say mentoring, like you're feeling overstressed, then you can get on and get a mentoring call. They have small group sessions. You get access to video library. There's other resources as well. So I'm going to pull this piece down and I'm going to show you once you go ahead and register by filling out that form, it's going to bring you to this page. And when you're going through this page, basically what you have here is on the left-hand side, a variety of the different programs they have, right? Like all listed down through here. They operate under a community platform called Mighty Networks. I've used this before. Matter of fact, one of the companies, I say companies, they're a nonprofit as well, Parent Camp that works with schools. I've done some work for them, and they used Mighty Networks. So it's a pretty cool platform. You can do a variety of stuff in it. But what they do is they store a lot of things. So when you go down through here, it's going to explain just some basics of what you have. Like take a look. There's a setup community, a private community. They've got discussion groups. You can post questions. You can get help. You'll get same-day coaching from their mentors, which is pretty amazing. They call it listening time, post for spontaneous listening time. You can do events. They have all these different courses that you can take. They have mini courses. They have bigger courses. I love this one. They do a cohort, which is like as you're working through one of their courses, like their parenting courses, then you can do it with other people, which is super powerful because then you can chat back things that you're learning as you go through the experience. There's resources and guides and like packets and articles and videos on all these different parenting topics and things to help you out. And then, as I said before, supportive live Zoom calls, and you can just ask them things, and you can work with people who have a foundation in helping parents help kids, or they also have an educators tab too, and people in the community who can work with them. So I am blown away that this is a 3-month free trial. Now, will a subscription kick in after 3 months? Yes. I don't know what the cost is. So what I often do if there is something that I'm purchasing, I will put on our calendar like a week before the deadline and say, hey, cancel this subscription by this date. Just like as a little reminder, I'll put it on my calendar. Because a lot of times you get a subscription and you forget, and then when you get past the free trial phase, it kicks in, and then I'm not sure what the total cost would be for their package. So keep that in mind. But for 3 months, I mean, goodness, all of that for 3 months, that is pretty stinking powerful stuff. It's so much support that it really blows me away. Like, I cannot believe they offer all of that for a 3-month period. And like I said, the sign up is pretty easy. You don't even need a credit card. It's just really good stuff. I'm going to do a full breakdown on a YouTube video coming up if you want to know a little bit more. But again, handinhandparenting.org. And you can look in the description of this live broadcast, and you can if I've done it correctly anyway. You should be able to get the link down there. I also wanted to share one more piece with you today, meaning a resource that I thought might be helpful. And thank you for your patience as I stumble through all of this here. So my thought with this was, and I just put a video out on my YouTube channel about this. We all struggle with monitoring our kids' social media. It's tough. Kids are, they're good at scrolling and just kind of burning the time away. And that can be super challenging as a parent to monitor. It can be super challenging as a, as it can be super challenging as somebody who wants to keep tabs on what their kids are doing. And so I'm pretty happy about this one particular thing that's just opening up now. If your kids go onto YouTube Shorts, which a lot of families will allow their kids certain time to get on YouTube Shorts, it's probably a little better than TikTok, maybe. Although you never know what your kids can run into. But what has happened is, let me click over here so I can guide you through this. YouTube Shorts has gone through and really kind of giving you some extra parameters. Again, I dropped a whole video on this, reviewing it and kind of going deep into it. So check that out and subscribe while you're there, by the way. So the idea here is YouTube Shorts wanted to give you some bigger pieces to keep tabs on how your children, how they navigate the scrolling feature in YouTube. So this is not for the long form videos, it's for the short form videos. So I say that because they're looking at three main areas, right? Like controls, the content, and then finding the right experience for your kid. And basically what they've done is given you some features that you can add in, like cutting bedtime. You can set a bedtime feature where after 8:30 at night on a weekday, they can't be on shorts anymore. You can set specific time that I only want my son on for 15 minutes. You can put in take a break features, all these time related things, and this is really what it looks like when you're setting the time feature in the shorts feed. If you set it for 0 minutes, it means if your kid gets a hold of your phone, they're not going to be able to look at anything. And that's definitely a pretty good option. This whole piece is really put together for kids who are 9 and up. And I'm going to tell you why that is in just a second. There's YouTube Kids, which you're probably well aware of, and their target audience for that is up to 8 years old. So they're looking at ways to not completely block kids out of using YouTube Shorts, but giving you as the parent more opportunities to control what it is that your kids are exposed to. So what will happen is this, but the tier above YouTube Kids is what they call the Explore feature, and it's really ages 9 and up, so probably 9 to 12, somewhere in there. But again, remember, your kids got their own unique brain, so every kid's a little bit different. This is really targeting like educational content, like Khan Academy, Crash Course. Crash Course is amazing, by the way, if you haven't checked that out. Like there's so many great resources there. TED Ed, all these kinds of things that, your kid can get something valuable from if they watch it. And then as they get older, maybe they're ready for what they call Explore More, which releases a little bit more content for them, but doesn't go into full scale. Hey, let's open it all up for them. So as you can see on the screen here, this is what happens. You choose which one you want, and then it's going to set up the system accordingly. You're going to log your kid in according to their age, and then, but keep in mind, if your child is 8 and you want that, do you think they're ready for the Explore version of it? They can go beyond YouTube Kids, even though they're not 9. Keep that in mind. So the Explore More is the next level up, and that is limited access to live streams as opposed to Explore, where there's really no live streams and or very limited. And here's why I say that. Live streams can get a little spicy sometimes. Kids will log into, click on, or just scroll through, and bang, up pops a live stream of some kids gaming, and it's not always clean. It's not always content you want your kid to see. So this is one of, to be honest with you, that's one of the best features of all of it. You can really kind of keep tabs on that. So they say explore more is 13 and up. Beyond that, they give you access to most of YouTube. These are older teenagers. And by that, meaning like you're going to get access to most of YouTube. The only things you're really restricted at that point are like age level, adult, mature content kinds of things. So this, I think, is a pretty great free resource for you that will help you monitor your kids and how they navigate social media. So if you're somebody who is like, I'm okay if my kid is on, if they're on social media for a little bit and I hand my phone over and let them scroll, but you're worried about what they're going to get into, this is good stuff. This is definitely good stuff. And I appreciate that YouTube actually made these decisions because the feedback they got from parents. So highly suggest you check that out. Highly suggest you check out my video as I go much deeper into the ins and outs of the Explore More, and most of YouTube packages, so you get a better idea of what that's all about. Okay. Whew. I appreciate you being here. Thank you for your time. And remember, it's not easy out there. It is definitely not. But, take resources that are available to you. If you're in a spot where you feel like society has got you weighed down, or, all the things your kids are going through have you weighed down, it's understandable. But what can you do to help yourself? What can you do to help your kids? Maybe it's hooking up with hand-in-hand parenting. What an awesome resource. And then leaning on others. I appreciate you being here. Do me a favor. Subscribe, like, all those things live. If you're catching this on the replay, I will put timestamps in. So if you want to go back and rewatch any of this on YouTube, you can just go back and check the timestamp and then say, for example, you just want to watch the YouTube stuff again, you'll be able to go right there. So I will go back in later tonight and kind of set those parameters, so it should be good for you. In the meantime, I want to wish you and your family an amazing week. Hang in there. It's not easy out there in parent land. Appreciate you. And I'm sure your kids do too, even though they don't always tell you. Remember that. Have a great week, everybody. See you again next week, Sunday night, 9 p.m. Tell a friend.